Good morning and welcome to AWS reView, a weekly look at what's happening at AWS and how it may change how you do business. I am your host, Michael Krause. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Charter Solutions, where we help organizations change and innovate quickly by accelerating their acquisition and use of data.
And I'm your co-host, John Affolter. I'm a senior sales engineer at Charter Solutions, where I work with potential customers and help them envision the possibilities that AWS enables.
Thank you, John. And for all of those who watched our show last week, I apologize one more time for the terrible delay between audio and video. Hopefully the problem is fixed now and things will be much better. So how's your week been so far, John?
It's pretty good. I know that last week we wanted to talk about the weather getting better, and now actually this week it is getting better. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, as we went through last week, I made a comment to my wife that I think April in Minnesota has become a time where winter is defined by the time of day. In the morning, it's winter. In the afternoon, it's spring. In the evening, it's starting to feel a little bit maybe like early summer, and then it goes back to winter in the morning the next day.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting back out on the bike here. So it should be a good day here later today to get on the bike. So.
Yeah, I think they're talking 59, 60 degrees today, so I think it'll be good.
All right. Yeah. Well, we better
Excellent.
get all our work done. So yeah. So before we move on for our topic to the day, the convergence of applications and analytics, wanted to take a quick look at what's been happening over at AWS last week.
Sure. One of the announcements that they made over the last week, which is interesting, is they have now announced the capability of publishing AWS Lambda functions with their own HTTPS endpoint URLs. So now you can create Lambda functions that you can call with an HTTPS call without having to use API gateway. It supports authentication. It's good for really, really simple solutions. However, for larger kind of services that sets that you're going to be building, I think API Gateway is still a very valuable tool. And if people are using the serverless framework to help build and deploy their Lambdas, setting up API Gateway is adding just a couple of lines of configuration code, and they do all the heavy lifting for you. So while this is a really good solution, I think for a larger managed solution, you still need to go with API Gateway to provide you a good point of not only security and management, but also redirection if you decide to use something other than Lambda in the future to handle those requests. John?
Yeah, so yeah, you make a good point there, just kind of the differences in scale of what that looks like. So, the next thing I noticed was the sustainability pillar is now available in the well-architected frame or well-architected tool. So I think this adding the sustainability pillar is really interesting and smart move by AWS. I think that there's a lot of different organizations that will need to be leveraging the data that they need to be able to define their sustainability. So it's going to really help customers or minimize the impact of the environmental impacts of running work or cloud workloads. And I think it'll really accelerate the adoption of cloud too. So just kind of showing the scale. So.
Yeah, I think Amazon's really kind of doubled down on the whole environmental aspects of it. Not only being able to weave it into the well-architected review from a standpoint of making sustainability a core practice, but also all the work they've done in trying to expose the environmental impact of using AWS.
Yeah, great point.
So another item that's of interest for organizations that use a lot of different accounts and occasionally spin up accounts for specific purposes. Amazon's released the ability to close member accounts with an API call. So in the past, they released an update to their API that allows you to create new organizations that way. Now you can also shut them down. So you now have the ability through automation to create an account within an organization. And then also when you're done using it, use that same automation to tear that account down. This is available on the command line interface through their API and SDK, and it's also available through the console.
Yeah, I think this is a really, I've heard a lot of great things about this update and how it's really been asked for a long time. So I think that this is, I think it's really a paradigm shifter too, in a way of how you manage your accounts and maybe hacking the free tier and, so I think it's a pretty exciting update with that. Another interesting update is the Lambda console now allows you to update a Lambda layer in all or a subset of functions. So now you don't have to, it really eliminates the need to update one function at a time and utilize external scripts to be able to deliver that update on multiple functions at once. So, Michael, I know that you love stuff that saves a lot of time and makes stuff easier, and this definitely is one of those updates.
Yes, I think this will be a big help for a lot of people, especially ones who depend heavily on Lambda layers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a little bit about what happened last week in AWS. And I'll turn over to Michael to introduce our great topic.
Sure. So today, the topic of the day is to talk about and look a little more deeply at this concept of convergence between applications and analytics. And this is something that we've been observing for the last few years as a growing trend. So
Yeah.
that'll be what we deal with.
Yeah. So, I guess, Michael, that kind of brings me to ask you the question, what do we mean about the convergence of applications and analytics? What does that entail?
Sure. So let me step back and start with kind of history and what things used to do. So in the past, you had organizations who would build applications, and then they'd have separate parts of the organization who would do analytics work. And that analytics work typically was your traditional build a data warehouse, build ETL to load data into the data warehouse, and then create reports off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the application side, if you need to tie into data, you do a separate integration from your applications to get that data into your application. And if you wanted data from your application available for reporting and analysis, what you'll find is that they would do ETL, or you would do dumps or feeds from your application back to do that. So they were really always two separate concerns. But what's happening is the use of data, especially as AWS continues to enable these things, is becoming more and more prevalent in the applications. Not just from an integration, being able to leverage that data, but also to present dashboards and analytics in that data that is richer than what you might have today. So tools like QuickSight are supporting embedded QuickSight, so that your application can have very rich analytic capabilities within that. But also what we're seeing is, when we talk convergence, is we're starting to see convergence of those pipelines and integrations as well. So rather than having a nightly ETL to grab certain data and feed it into the data warehouse for reporting, and then have a separate integration that maybe grabs that same data or some subset of it and pulls it into one or more applications so that they can use that data for decision making in the app, we're starting to see those pipelines converge and doing a single integration and feeding that to all of the potential consumers of that data. And we're seeing this bidirectionally. So we're seeing drawing data in that way, but also the same convergence is happening as we push data out. And this is kind of a technology shift and a mindset shift for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You make a great point there. It is a mind shift, or is a mind shift or mind shift switch. Wow, that was a tough one.
Yeah.
So
One of the companies I worked for a long time ago had a sign on their wall that said "Paradigm Shift Happens."
yeah, that's great. Yeah, well, you had mentioned QuickSight before, Michael, and I really think that even especially for ISVs, you're going to really see a lot more of those embedded analytics within the application. And we're doing a lot of work with our clients right now, and also the AWS QuickSight and embedded team to be able to go into applications and be able to provision and do things with the data in QuickSight without having to sign into QuickSight. So I think that's really going to be a big thing too.
Absolutely. And I think people, as part of this, need to expand what they think about when they talk analytics. There is a portion of the market that when you say analytics, they think dashboards and reporting.
Yep.
And today, analytics is much more than that. machine learning models that run in real time as part of delivering the application, right? Or delivering services. Let's take it outside of an application. Just think of a company's services, right? I may have an application that collects data from, say, HVAC sensors all over the world.
Yeah.
Great, that's a nice application. And then I can go to every customer and I can show them a user interface that displays this beautiful, dashboard of what's happening within their space, right? But what you haven't done in that scenario is you haven't automated anything for them. All you've done is made it easier for them to look at data and try to decide what they should do. So now with the advent of easier to build and deploy and operate machine learning models, statistical models, things like that, we can now do things like watch that data as it's coming in. And it doesn't just have to be sensor data. We could be bringing in weather data. We could bringing in energy data. I think we talked a little bit about this last week.
Yeah.
And make decisions on that data as it appears and take actions, right? Yes, we're going to show this to you in a screen. We may show an alert on the screen to tell you something's out of sync, but we might also produce a ticket and roll a truck to repair something
Yep.
in preparation of that.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so when people talk analytics, what they need to think about is not just the dashboard or the report, but it is taking data from multiple sources and using it for decision making, whether that's done by a computer or done by a human.
Yep. No, absolutely. And being able to, like you said, from last week and talking about real time is being able to get those insights and make decisions quickly. And that really helps the monetization of the data too, and adding in the features that you can, get a price increase on your product and really kind of holistically improve the usability of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting when we talk about the convergence at the pipeline level. In the past, you did it differently because you had different organizational groups. You also did it differently because you had different time frames in which you needed that data, right? The app needed the data once every 5 minutes. Yeah, but it was easier for us to just grab it nightly or once a week for analytics purposes because we don't need it in that timely of a manner. But the technologies for accelerating this stuff, which we talked about in our last episode, make it easier to do it for both. So having companies move from the mindset of, I have two different purposes and therefore I need to get the data two different ways. I need to use it in two different ways. The reality is I have one pipeline. I get the data at the frequency that I need for my highest frequency or my largest time sensitivity. But then as I take that data through my pipeline and I add adjustments and curations to it, I am feeding off that pipeline to both analytics and traditional type analytics and reporting and applications that need it.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a good point of being able to enrich it in stream and being able to, kind of like last week too, that is a new convergence to be able to have things happen in stream and the adoption of that I think is going to become more widespread too.
Absolutely. And companies who are not doing this are going to find themselves seriously behind the 8 ball.
Yep.
Because companies who are doing this are able to bring new capabilities to their customers, things that weren't available before, bring more fine-grained control to their customers. So when you think about things like, and I'm going to keep going on this trend of HVAC for a second. When you think about energy control, right? If I make adjustments once an hour rather than once a day, I can improve my efficiency with energy use. If I can make those adjustments once every 10 minutes, I can improve it even more. If I can make those adjustments every minute, I can potentially improve it even more, right? At some point, there may be diminishing returns, but having that ability means I can save more money for my customers. I can offer them new capabilities. I can bring them better services, and my competition who's not approaching it this way will be unable to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The old AWS virtuous cycle. So, and I don't mind you being on HVAC. I come from a family of HVAC folks, as you know. So, I always love being able to add that in. So, Michael, what should companies be doing to get ready for this? I know we talked a little bit about some of the real time tech, but what are some other things they can be doing to get ready?
You know, this is one of those things where it needs to start. We can play with it grassroots and bring that up and demonstrate that we can make these things happen, but it really needs to be tied into product strategy.
Hmm.
So as an organization, you need to be able to establish, understand the art of the possible and establish a vision for where you would like to go and start developing that strategy to get there, because that's going to inform your funding for doing these types of things, right? And if this is not part of your vision, you're never going to get there. People might
Hmm.
play with it, people might attempt to do it and show that, hey, we can play with this stuff, but it'll never really get adopted. So the first thing is to really look at your product and your customers and ask the question of, what new value can I bring to my customers, which brings new value to me? What competitive advantage can I get here? And start working that into your product strategy and allow that to feed down into the technical portion of that. Also, along with that line, get together with AWS and take a look at what are all the tools, what are the best practices that can be brought to the table to make this happen, right? Here at Charter Solutions, we do this with our customers all the time, is help them plan that out both technically and strategically. So get that knowledge, get that understanding, and then start identifying where can I begin? What is the first value I could potentially give to a customer, and how do I work that back and start bringing those things together?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you bring up a good point too, is getting with the customer and then also getting with AWS. I think it's really important. I know I've had a couple of really good experiences, and I know that you and I met with AWS last week, but just really trying to make a game plan and a strategy together of how we can help the clients together. So I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah, and AWS has brought a lot of great technologies to the table to allow you to do, basically, I like to call it data pipelining, but it's really event driven updates to data, right?
Hmm.
If something changes, let's get that change in as soon as we can, and then let's flow that change through this pipeline and let all actors through all the different adjustments and partition and curations know about these changes,
Hmm.
so that if they need to take an action very quickly, they have that ability. If they really don't need to, at least they have the data. And we're
Yep.
leveraging the same infrastructure, the same cost and expense to gather that data and make it available.
Yeah, no, and Michael, you talked about a couple of other good points of weaving it into the product strategy, and what kind of makes the difference between companies that might be ready to use this or maybe companies that need to use this right now, and kind of how does that define?
So, some of it's a some of it's based on kind of where your particular niche in the market lives.
Mhm.
There are a lot of different strategies that companies can take from a product perspective. Um, let's take a few examples and talk through them. So, first of all, your competition has already started doing this and you have not,
Mm.
right? Okay, you're now playing catch up. So, you've got, in my mind, three options. First of all, you don't do anything, and over time, you will probably fall to the wayside,
Mhm.
right? That's not an option anybody really wants to chase. The other two options is the first one is, all right, let's invest in this technology and let's kind of get to parity with our competition. So let's get to that same level where they can no longer say, we've got this thing that these people don't have. Let's get to a point where that's no longer on the table. We have parity.
Mhm.
The other option, and this is not necessarily for all companies in all niches, but it's an interesting thing to think about. And a lot of companies have made some really great moves in this type of approach that have gotten them huge value in the marketplace, which is to basically redefine the solution for the customer.
Mhm.
So, yes, your competition's kind of going in lockstep, all five of them in the same direction, and they're ahead of you. What if you go slightly to the left and leap ahead of them
Mhm.
and bring a whole different way of working to your customer, right? So now you can say, oh, that's the old way. Don't do it the old way anymore. Here's the new way. And here's the value that you get out of this new way.
Yep.
So that's kind of that third option. And all of these apply kind of wherever you are in the competitive space. But if you're far behind, this is kind of a more important thing to consider in my mind.
Yep.
Do you play catch up, or do you attempt to leapfrog them, not by
You,
going
you
past them,
just
but going sideways?
I was just gonna say that the old leapfrog, and I know my boss Carol will like that she loves the term leapfrog, and I think you make a great point, Michael. Is if you just try to catch up, that's you're gonna be spending a lot of time and money just to catch up, and it might not make that competitive difference. Could keep you in the game a little bit, but you're
Yep.
still gonna be you're losing market share. So
Right.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and innovation is an important thing, and there's a risk, right? I know my competition's going this way. If I just catch up, I'm eliminating a bunch of risk, but I'm not taking on anything new, right? If I go slightly sideways, I'm taking on risk because I'm trying to redefine how a market works, right? So probably one of the more contemporary classic examples of that is the iPhone, right?
Mhm.
It was a total game changer of
Yes.
approach. It was a big risk, but guess what? How many people have phones with buttons on them anymore? Very few. Very few. Um, so let's look at a couple of the other examples here. So let's take a company who is, kind of in line with their competition, right? So the risk here is if your competition is investing in this, you are ripe for falling behind.
Hmm.
Right? So you're in a really nice position because you can move forward ahead of your competition in the same space by leveraging this and be able to bring some things to the customers that you can't have. But you can also now play with going sideways to the left or right a little bit.
Yep.
And that's not as big a risk for you because you're not in a high risk position starting. You're in a kind of medium risk. You're just like all the other people at the table, So I can step forward. They could also step forward, but if I can play with moving left or right as well, that may put me in a position where I've now really jumped forward quite a ways with them. And then
Absolutely.
the last group are people who are already investing, making these decisions. The real question there now becomes one, do I leverage innovation to try to make a left or right sideways move as part of this and build even more distance between myself and my competitors?
Hmm.
Two, do I just keep investing in this and try to stay ahead of my competitors, which means you need to get a feel for how your competitors are investing in this, right? If you are kind of the innovative thinker and none of your competitors are really thinking this way, they always like to do it the old way, then yeah, you're probably fine. You'll probably do really good just kind of keeping ahead. But if it's high competition and you've got innovators in your competition, now you've got a scenario where it's like, okay, I need to push harder, adopt faster, look for more opportunities to engage my customers in a different way, change the paradigm in what we're delivering to them. So that's kind of what I would kind of categorize in a highly generalized way,
Yeah.
the three kind of groups that you might have to deal with.
I think about a company that came in and kind of took that left way or that left way direction, and that's TikTok. And think
Yep.
about that they came into a pretty saturated market between Snapchat and Instagram and even
Yep.
Facebook and LinkedIn. Everyone had the streaming, but they added that spin of being able to edit videos and really make it more about that short video. And now the TikToks can go really long, but just kind of like the old Vine, but they did it in a way that really caught fire. And now it's the main platform for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's that kind of sideways piece that I'm talking about here. And what's really cool about the cloud, and especially about AWS, is as you're looking at these things, being able to play with innovation, it has a much lower cost. It has a lower price point. It has a lower cost of failure. Um, it if you build your systems correctly, you've got flexibility. I can take and do A/B
Mhm.
testing, right? So I can build a test feature of see how the customers would like something, and I can roll it out to just a subset of my customers
Yep.
as part of my app, and I can garner feedback on that and see what's going to happen, right? So not only can I do the traditional kind of marketing focus group customer engagement, I can also go and connect up with the customers and put things in their hands to play with
Yep.
without having to build a whole brand new system, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And I think, what it is too is you have to think of all these different organizations like Uber, they were architecture first. They had this convergence of analytics and the application built inherently in it. And that's the thing that really made it a big, competitive advantage for them. And I think now we're going to see all these other companies that, started off brick and mortar. Now they're going to start moving towards architecture first type design.
Right. Now, if you look at Uber and like Airbnb as examples,
Yeah,
and I'm glad,
another great one.
yeah, I'm glad you brought those up because these companies are examples of the convergence of applications and analytics, right? They might have some dashboards internally that they're using, but the vast majority of those things are fed from the data they're collecting in their app, from their drivers, from their customers, ratings, where things are happening, integrations with other systems that they have. All of that data internally and with third parties is feeding into them at high rates. And it goes both for internal BI purposes and for decisions being made in the application and information to their customers and their drivers or homeowners, if you're on the Airbnb side, to help them make better decisions as well.
Yeah, and just the amount of monetization that can come from that data too. I'm sure there's a lot of companies that their dirty little secret is that they're actually selling data on the back end, and that's actually a huge revenue stream for them. So I guess we got a couple of minutes left here, and I guess I wanted to just kind of get your opinion on where that might be taken with analytics, and data privacy, and how this convergence of analytics and applications and data privacy might kind of start to blend a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting thing. It's
like a whole topic in itself.
Yeah, it's a whole topic in and of itself. But very briefly, it's a slippery slope world, right? As soon as I start selling data to other people, one, it's a moneymaker, right? And you can do it scrupulously or unscrupulously. And that's where the slippery slope comes in. But, if you do it purely from the standpoint of, hey, this is another revenue stream that we should optimize, chances are you're going down that slippery slope and you're going down it fast.
Yes.
On the other hand, if you look at it from how do we make Michael have a better life, right? Well, there's a certain amount of information sharing that enables a better life for me.
Yep.
Right. So finding that balance, and this, we could probably go into a whole like 5 sessions on ethics around this.
Oh yeah.
But there's a balance in there, right? I'm not in the camp where it's like nobody should ever share data. I think there should be transparency with the people who own who the data is about. But I think if all parties involved, and I know this is kind of a utopia statement, if all parties involved are doing it with the customer's best interests in mind, then I think it's a reasonable thing, right? Having my different doctors share data about my care to help provide better care for me as a whole is a good thing. Having my doctors share my data so they can all market to me and sell me services that I may not need is a bad thing.
Right? Yes.
But the data's the same, the sharing's the same, the purpose and the intent is where it happens. And that's a really hard thing to kind of manage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we're coming up here at the end of our time, but I think this is a really good topic, and we might even have more shows to go in on this too, because I think it's just going to keep accelerating. So.
Yeah, and I think data management, data control, and data privacy is an interesting topic. It'd be a good topic for us to find some guests on.
Yep.
So with that note, I'm going to once again make a call out for guests. If people are interested in participating in any of our shows and have some information they would love to share, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us. You can find me on Twitter at MJ Krause, and you can find John on Twitter at Johnny Affolter. But this is all we've got for you today. We're running out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you learned
Thank
something
you.
new today. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to our channel, and we will let you know when we are live next. So join us next week at this same time for our next fun and interesting topic. Thank you all.
Thank you.